recording in progress. People seem to like, coming and checking this thing out later when work is done, or so that's good. We've been getting a lot of views, and what's funny about the website has all of the lectures and everything recorded, and hopefully people see that once in a while, because I don't seem to give any real valuable information during the current it's more of a love fest, but all the information is there. So if people want to go back on that. So other Chris, I'm still looking for your stuff.
No worries, it'll show up at some point.
It will, but in the meantime, I have lots of oysters. Why don't you come by and I'll set you up? So
All right.
you'll find it.
I appreciate that, Kim. So public service announcement, guys, if you see some pink tape with Aries on it, ARIES, we're missing 2 or 3 cages, but if not, we'll get it all worked out. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kim.
we'll get it all worked out. But come by anytime. I took out of overwinter a lot of stuff I had at Goose Creek, and I am now overflowing with goodwill towards lost souls. So
Hey, Kim.
Thank you.
Hey.
Kim, do you have enough guitars?
You know what? I have 83 basses in my house, and the ones that I actually just set myself up with, I have now at my fingertips 40 really good ones so. And as a matter of fact, at 6:30 I have a band practice, so we're gonna abruptly end at 6:30, which is good. People can go and eat and stuff like that. So yes, I have lots of I'm really enjoying music in my old age, and so I play a lot. And my main guy who I play with went off to sea. He just helped deliver a boat from Florida he's in the Azores, and he's going to Gibraltar and then Croatia. So it was quite a long trip. It's about a 5 or 6 week trip. And he's 74. He went over to teach the crew of this power boat how to do celestial navigation, because that's his thing. And so he just sent me a picture, a video from the Azores, and I couldn't really figure out who was going to be the recipient of what. Well, it was a guy cutting up a tuna with a Sawzall to trade for a tie-dye shirt. So I'm not sure if Dave was getting the tuna or the tie-dye shirt. But it's quite a trade. I guess if you're in the Azores, you got plenty of tuna, but not enough tie-dye shirts. So I guess that's a good deal. I'm not entirely sure. And as far as food handling, cutting tuna with a Sawzall is probably not, FDA approved, but
It's a lot easier than a handsaw, but boy, does it make a mess. I'll tell you that.
yeah, boy, I don't know. So it was pretty funny. So we do have a jazz quartet that's getting ready to do some shows at the Ram's Head on Sunday. So I'll get information out about the music. That'll be fun. And so anyway, I think we're oh yeah, we're 3 minutes past starting time. So we'll go ahead and I just wanted to give, this is a nice thing. Darcy, by the way, if you're wondering how come I send such great emails out, it's because I don't even have an email list. I just write a little short blurb and send it to Darcy, and she churns out this monumental email with all these great links. And so I commend her for her wonderful job of staying connected with all of us. And we will continue to do that. We're supposed to be, one of the things that I can actually pride the Spat program on is the fact that, there are lots of oyster gardening programs in the United States, but I have to say, there really aren't any quite like Spat. And one of the reasons why is because, not even joking aside, I'm on like 24/7 call for our group. People call me on Sundays. I answer my emails, all the time. Most programs, they might have an event and then months go by and you don't hear anything. So I do have to say that, we we do a good job of keeping the family informed and going. And instead of, we're going on 24 years now, and instead of it just being a bore, we're really looking at ramping everything up. We still have a lot of exciting things going on. Charles, who is a SPAT member, he's been very active in the hatchery, and his last mad scientist thing is doing strip spawning of oysters, where instead of waiting for them to spawn, he opens them up. They take them right out of the cages this time of year. And if you're eating oysters right now, you might notice that they're quite plump and meaty and white. They're full of spawn. And so he's been strip spawning and running these larvae that are from strip spawns. So we're doing that. We want to do a spat on shell spawn next week. We are off Monday. I hope everyone's going to have a nice 3-day weekend. I am there tomorrow. If folks, want to come and get their oysters for the holiday, I wouldn't worry about the rain that fell at the Marine Center. The oysters will be fine to eat if you come by tomorrow. I'm there 7 to, I get in at 7 these days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and usually hope to get done by 1, and then catch up on all the other stuff. But feel free to come by, get some oysters if you have your oysters there, and we got a couple extra oysters. And you can see all the activity that's going on. We've got, everything is up and running. The new seed is growing well. And I would say that it will start being given out around the 2nd week of June, maybe 3rd week of June. But definitely, keep up on that, because you don't really want to get your seed in August. You should get it before August. If you don't get around to it, so be it. But if you can get it late June, early July, you're going to do a lot better than if you wait till. And some people sign up in September, but when they get their seed, it's always about a quarter of the size of what people got in June and July. So you really want to get a jump on that, on the new seed. We do have some overwinter seed for folks. I've been giving out 250 to new members and whatnot, and you still get your full complement when it's ready. So that is still available. I actually have to start shedding some of that seed from the machines. Right now we're running about 36 barrels of overwinter seed, and I'm going to need those machines for, it's a lot of seed. Chris, that's it, but you're good at eye rolling. It's a good thing I'm not a judge. If I say, "Oh, are you eye rolling me?" Never mind.
But I'm not a poker player. What can I
Yeah,
tell you?
not
Too much time on Zoom.
either. Yeah, okay. So that's going on, and I'm always game for people's interesting things that they want to do. So if you've got some crazy ideas and you want to try some things, don't ever be shy. That's what we're here for. We're here to kind of experiment and keep expanding what we're doing, instead of just going easy there, nice and slow. We like to be nice and ramped up. I keep getting these texts from Mike Corso. He wants me to play at Green Hill Kitchen on Saturday, and maybe I should, and people can come by. And I just got another text from a guy who's a major jazz guy from Chicago who played with like Diane Warwick and Diane played with all kinds of folks, and he's coming out to play at the house. So what can I tell you? We have not gotten around to scallops yet, and I would like to try to ramp some scallops up. It's been a real chore, scallops again. The Cornell team is working hard on the genetics of scallops and some of these issues, and I think things are starting to get a little better with scallops. We're going to keep our eye on that. I see Dean there. You know, Dean, let me ask you a question, Dean. Dean, for 2 years, has done a very interesting experiment with overwintering oysters. Oh, what's going on over there? Okay. Oh, you joined me. Yeah, it's being recorded. We heard you making noise in the background. That's my wife, Kimmy. She's a member. She's an honorary member now that she's retired. But what Dean did for the last 2 years was everybody gets all concerned about how they're going to overwinter their oysters. And we took Dean's and just took the cages, took the floats off and hung them straight up and down. So all the oysters are on the bottom and just hanging like an old suit in the closet. And I don't know if that is good or bad. What's your thought this year, Dean? Did you lose more, would you say?
So yeah, so I had almost no mortality with the seed I got last year. What I did have a problem with was the one cage that I had, the overwintered seed. Those developed a serious boring sponge problem.
Really?
And so I lost about 15% or so of that cage. And it was just,
it was boring sponge? I mean,
yeah, they were the same thing, like chalky outside, and you see holes all over the place, and
interesting.
all the dead ones looked like they were just cracked open.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So, I mean, in general, it's not a total disaster, but
It works. It works, right? And I don't have to do anything other than cut the floats off and
yeah, I
use
know.
my little rope handle and stick it on the 1x6.
I mean, there was a guy back in the day. His name was Plock. He ran the Shelter Island Oyster Company, and he had the facility that is now Shellfish Preserve that was Karen Rivara's hatchery. Eros is now Pico's hatchery. Pico bought Eros, so that's Peter Stein is now, that's his hatchery. I think he's not entirely sure if he kept the name Pico or what the name is, but back in the day, Plock used to grow his oysters in, I call them filing cabinets. And it was kind of like what Dean did, because that's like having your files in a filing cabinet, and you could really put a lot of oysters in. We did have it in the flow of the upweller, and that was probably a wise thing. But I'm going to play around with that because it's very intriguing for overwintering. I wouldn't grow oysters that way during the season. I think you'd run into all kinds of issues. But in the winter, you know, they really are theoretically in hibernation. It's hard to say what winter is anymore. I mean, we didn't get skim ice this year again. I would say it was a very warm winter. It's a subjective thing. Humans that like warm don't like winter no matter what. I used my wood stove up until like last week. It's funny because I had the wood stove going last week, and today I could have theoretically turned the air conditioning on, which is very strange. But it wasn't a cold winter. I mean, I've seen 8 inches of ice on Cedar Beach Creek and walked on it, and you know, many times, many winters, and that hasn't happened in a while now. So, you know, if people are growing oysters and they're 2 years old, don't be surprised if you start losing. You know, if you have a bag of 100 oysters coming out of the spring now, You have 100 beautiful oysters and they've maybe overwintered 2 years. Don't be surprised if you just saw them last week, you had 100 oysters and you come back the following week and 10 of them are dead. If that's the case, that could be derma. That's what that's the kind of mode that dermo takes on. It doesn't kill all of your oysters. You come back and everything's dead. You see these beautiful oysters that were doing fine, and 6 of them, 7, 8 of them are dead. And you just saw them last week. That could be dermo. So, I try to encourage people to eat their oysters. And, I've been showing people, they say, well, these oysters aren't really ready. They're only like 2.5 inches. And I'll open one up for them and they're perfect oysters. So don't really go by the shell size. Go by the cuppiness and the weight of them. Is almost more important. And if you like big oysters, then go ahead and try. I mean, Tiana folks are growing some pretty monstrous oysters, and they don't seem to be succumbing to dermo. But dermo is in the water and it's in the oysters. It's just a matter of some places you might see higher mortality, and it will definitely be exacerbated by warm winters and then warm springs. Sometimes the water temperature, I'm acutely aware of the water temperature coming into the spring because we spawn our oyster. Our first oyster spawn was January 31st, which is really quite early. So we fed those oysters cultured microalgae from January 31st to about April 18th. And the reason why I put them on ambient water is we ran out of algae. They were eating us out of house and home. They were like teenagers coming home from, or college kids coming home. And you ever notice as a parent, when your kids come home to visit, you walk in the kitchen and they're standing in front of the refrigerator with the door open, just staring into it. And it's like, okay. And then they shut the door and walk away. I've seen that so many times. It's just, I don't know. So that's what our oysters are like.
You have to put in what they want, Kim. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question about that. On the overwinter, how shut up are the oysters? I mean, do they
No, this
open up occasionally to check the water, or do they?
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, because this winter, there's a good chance that they didn't close up for very long ever. I mean, if the water temperature wasn't that cold, and there are some cold water algae that will grow. I mean, I will tell you this, oysters started feeding in March. And there was shell growth early on. So
42, 45 by me?
yeah, something like that, and they are much more resilient to the water temperature than humans are. I stuck my hand in the water and it really felt cold. But the oysters, if the water temperature is in the 40s, they're not going to be hibernating. They're used to, in the 30s, yes. But I'm sure there's plenty of literature on it, but I go by the eyebolometrics, which is if you pull up oysters in early April and they have a fingernail of growth on them, that's not an artifact. That's new shell growth that they put on because they're feeding. And right now, when you go to pull your oysters out, there's a lot of new growth. They've grown quite a bit, and we will find yours, so you can.
Well, I do have some. If you remember, I tried that Wellfleet experiment and put, I don't know, whatever it was, 5 or 6 dozen in the fridge, and high mortality rate. I mean, probably closer to, well, Kim, you and I counted, but I think it was closer to 15%. So
Well, that's an interesting experiment that to actually pull your oysters completely out of the water for months, which is the Wellfleet approach. It there's a fine dance with that, including, I would say that if you're on the water, you have a place on the water, and you're concerned if there's a storm coming up, that you're going to lose your oysters. You can pull them out of the water and put them in a spot until the storm is gone. But just make sure. I had one person from Tiana that did that, and she claims that she only pulled the oysters out of the water for a day or so, and they all died, which I find very suspect,
Unless it grows.
unless it was really, really hot. If they're kept cool, because in the wintertime, they can literally stay out of the water for months. And so, in the summertime, you have to be careful of them opening up and spilling out their liquids and literally drying up, and they get overheated. But, if you put them in your neighbor's garage for the night, they should be fine. If you are afraid of them getting lost in a storm, I rather they come out of the water for 12 hours during a raging storm than everything gets ripped away. So that's a thought.
Yeah, I mean, Kim, you know this for the benefit of the group. So we are on Fire Island Inlet, and I'm not there all the time. So it was a peace of mind thing. Like, okay, I don't have to worry about them if I can get them to be okay in a fridge for 1 or 2 months. And 2 months was fine. After that, I think we started losing them.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Good. And maybe it was the teenager that came home.
Fair enough.
So, so all of that's going on. Feel free to come by the Marine Center. Don't be shy. We're there every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 to noon or 1 or so. I'm at Tiana every Tuesday for the folks down there. All the equipment's there. By this Tuesday, the tarp is on, the culling machine is there, the pressure washers, all new hoses, the electric's all rigged. There's 120 lines run, all pretty much new. So everything looks good for there. So on a rigging note, I got roped into to doing a demonstration on knot tying, and it's kind of a segue about storms and whatnot. I've had a lot of people in the past say, "Oh, my oysters were stolen," and I kind of do that eye rolling thing, the judge is watching me, but I could say to them, "Well, here, tie me a bowline. Let me see how you tie a bowline." And then they find their oysters offshore, they kind of came off of the line and came off the dock. And not everybody is expected to know how to tie a knot. I mean, I happen to be a mariner. I wasn't a mariner. I wasn't born. My dad, he was a funny guy. He met my mother in Venezuela because he sailed from Canada to Florida to Trinidad to Venezuela on a 60-foot staysail schooner, and he came into Caracas on this 60-foot staysail schooner and met my mother in Venezuela, who was visiting there. And you would think, oh wow, he was a real great sailor. He hated sailing. He just was along for this kind of crazy adventure. But I did not learn sailing from my dad. He got his sailing thrills when he was in his 20s and never went back to it. But I got my training really when I was in college. I went to sea for a semester and went from Woods Hole to Barbados. That was 28 days out without sea and land, and then got hired on in Tortola on a square rigger for 6 months. So I put about 8 months at sea on tall ships, and I didn't learn how to sail on those tall ships, but I did learn rigging. I didn't learn how to sail until I got a sailboard, because you have to know the wind. You have to understand the wind. The thing with a sailboard is you are the rudder, you're the tiller, you're the sheet, you're everything. That your brain and your body are all the components of how to steer and maneuver a sailboard. And that's integral in understanding how to sail. So now I have a nice sailboat, and I'm pretty good at it. But it's totally different about rope. And I guess this is rope. If it's on board the ship, it's not rope anymore. It's a line. Even on the ship, it wouldn't be rope, it would be cordage. But this is a piece of double braid nylon. If people are interested in rigging, I don't know if I can show anybody how to tie a knot on Zoom. I have very, very seldomly been able to teach anybody how to tie a knot, even live, because you just have to do it properly over and over and over again, so it's second nature to you. So I'm gonna just show you a couple knots and just tell you a couple things about. I was just on my boat, and I was rigging up the bimini, and I was doing all these things, and I was doing and 4 days ago, I put a new canvas top on my Saab convertible, and everything I do has rigging in it. It's amazing how often I use rigging. It seems like every day I rig something up, because a piece of line is an amazing tool. It's got remarkable mechanical advantage, and it is so versatile in the things that it can do for you. And so I would be saddened if folks in the Spat program got through the rest of their lives without at least enjoying some bit of rigging. Okay, so if you're interested in it and you want to spend some time, I learned how to splice this double braid, which is really cool. How would you possibly put an eye in double braid? And I just looked online. There was a really good tutorial on how to do it I think it was out of West Marine or one of these things. And it was fascinating to me how anybody figured out how to put an eye splice in double braid. And you need some special tools. You need a hollow fit, and you got to follow all these instructions. But it's so cool once you do it and make your own dock lines and things. And so if people want to learn how to do that, it's totally different. I was teaching Otto, who is now 88. He still comes in every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I don't know. Are you on, Otto? Are you here? Are you on the? I don't see Otto. He's going to see it later. But I taught him how to do an eye splice in three strand. That's very simple to do. I'm not going to do it today. But if anyone's interested in doing some rigging work, I'd be happy to do that with you. So this is 3-strand, and that's nylon. That's a good all around line. Double braid is much more expensive, kind of a thinner double braid. I got a thinner one to show you a specific knot that is used for tying two unlike sizes of line together. So I'm just going to show you a couple. If you have any questions, that's okay. Let me see if I can get, yeah, it's very hard to do this on Zoom, but I use what's called the weaver's technique of tying knots. My hands are always open and apart like this, and I put the line like that. That's what I do. So you're not like holding this thing like this. You're like this in in a lot of different knots. And the reason why is to tie a bowline, the way that most people tie a bowline is they make a loop. They say, this is the hole and this is the rabbit, right? And the rabbit goes up the hole, around the tree, and back down the hole. Okay, that's all fine and good. And that's a bowline. That's all fine. That's a bowline with a very short tail. And that tail, by the way, is not whipped. It's not even burned properly. It's not a very, this is a line I grabbed from my truck. This is not a good end for there. It's fraying and whatnot. There's this stuff you can just burn with a torch and it melts, and or you can tape it. This one is frayed too a little bit. This one's much more sealed. That's just burned. But I could show people how to do a proper whipping. You need a sail palm, you need a sailing needle and sail twine and stuff to do a good whipping. But here's the thing with a bowline that throws people off. The hole has to be the right way in order for the bowline to work. And truthfully, I can't even figure it out because I don't do the hole in the rabbit and the tree business. And on that note, you see, so now you might not be able to see what I'm doing here, but I'm going to tie the bowline behind my back. Okay? Because if I'm doing the weaver's technique, I don't have to think about what I'm doing. No, that's simple. No, that's it. That's like the tugboat bowline. Everyone loves the tugboat bowline. The tugboat bowline is the one that goes, I don't know if I could do it. Yeah, I can do it. That's a tugboat bowline.
You got it. Nice.
Yeah, and that, I could show it. That's just a fun thing because what you're doing is you're taking it, again, weaver's technique. I'm turning my wrist as I'm taking this and throwing it over. And so it's a simple little, and then you put one through the other and you got it's very cool. A lot of people don't realize that some of these knots, they seem complicated, but if you understand the principle of it, it's quite simple. So if that's the piling, yeah, don't mind my foot. This is the piling. Okay, here's a piling. And you're coming up to a piling and you were going to tie your boat off with a clove hitch. If you do this, I got like that, and you go back and forth around the piling, well, the piling was supposed to be my foot. That's a clove hitch. Okay, and instead of trying to figure out whether you're going around and you're going through and you're doing that, if it's a piling and you can drop it on top, how do I? It's really hard to show you when. Like that, over the piling. That's a clove hitch. Done. So, certain knots, there are 7 knots to learn. Clove hitch, a bowline, round turn and 2 half hitches, a stopper knot, a figure 8 knot is same as stopper knot, a square knot, a sheet bend, and a double sheet bend. Those are integral knots to learn. And so the bowline, again, the weaver's technique of a bowline is this. I'm going to try to show you slowly. I've got this is, by the way, this part of the line is called the bitter end. If anyone's been to Tortola, to the Bitter End Yacht Club, yeah, it's quite a spectacular place. When I was on the square rigger, there were these 2 kids that came on board. They were from college and they were going to intern for a couple of weeks before they went back to school. One of them was really quite out of shape, a kind of heavy set guy. The other one was pretty lean and he was going to survive. But his buddy was on board for a week, and you had to go up 110 feet to the top of the foremast to stow the sails, and you weren't allowed to like use your legs to shimmy up and down. You had to be a monkey. You had to be kind of insane. And the first week that I was on board the square rigger, my hands were just blood. There was raw meat. The second week, they were leather gloves. They were just, he, after 1 week, he said to me, I can't stay on here. I have to get off. I'm getting off here. And it's like, well, we're at the bitter end. Do you know where you are? And he's like, I don't care. I just have to get off. And he got off at the bitter end. I mean, you can't really leave the bitter end unless you kind of on a boat. So I don't know how he did. He probably did fine. He's probably making a lot more money than I'll ever make. Anyway, so that's the bitter end. Okay. This would be the standing end. I'm standing on it. Standing end, the bitter end. So I take the bitter end in my right hand. I'm right-handed, open-handed. And what I'm doing is this. I cross over, and with my thumb, I cross over, and with my thumb, I turn. And, again, I don't think I could do this. I don't think I can do this. I'm going over, turning with my thumb. So I don't know. See, I've made the hole. Here's the rabbit. Here's the hole. Here's the tree. But I can't think about it that way. I have to put it on, twist, and now I'm all set to go around and through. And so once you get a handle of that, when you need to tie a bowline in a hurry, you don't even have to think about it. You're just flipping it. And you're going to get it every time. And the thing with a bowline is this. A bowline is a knot that makes a loop that cannot slip. There's no way it can slip. Okay. But the beauty is you can tow. I could slip this on the ball of my truck and tie this to a tree and pull the tree, which I do all the time when I'm cutting a tree and I don't want to wipe out the new fruit trees that Kimmy just planted. And she's looking at me, and sometimes I screw it up, but I'm pretty good at it. She's seen me do so. Her daughter watched me drop a tree. It missed the garage by about 1.5 inches, but it was rigged up. It was really it was a big tree and it made a lot of noise. And then it was, so you can pull and pull and pull. And here, this part of the knot is called a camel. And even for a lot of times without even a tool, like what's called a fid, you can break the camel's back that relieves the pressure so that you can untie this knot. The thing with a knot is there's a knot, a true knot, and then there's a knife knot. A knife knot means you got to cut the thing. You can't untie it. There's no way you can untie it. Like if you do a round turn like this, just a round turn, you just go around and through, and you pull this tight and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, you're going to turn it into a knife knot. You can use a fid. You can try to get it in there and loosen it up after tension, but it's not the same as. So this is a round turn, around and through. Either way, it's just a round turn. Some people will call that a stopper knot. It does act like a stopper knot, but the problem is it doesn't have a proper camel. If you tie a figure-8 knot, you're going around the back and through. And it looks like an 8. And when you pull it tight, it looks like an 8. On both sides, it looks like an 8. And you can pull this very tight and it's got a camel. So you can release the pressure. And it also makes for a bigger stopper. So depending on the hole that it's going through, it'll stop. That's a stopper, figure 8 stopper. So you had a bowl and a figure 8. I showed you the clove hitch, but basically a clove hitch, you're going, a lot of these knots, I can't even tie. You're going around and then through and a clove hitch. But a lot of times it's easier to just do it my way. Here, through, done. You don't even have to think about it. Nobody's going to learn anything from this instructional because you can't even see what I'm doing. But I'm enticing you to come around and as a group or whatever, we sit around and just tie knots for a half an hour. This is a really important thing. So this could be anything. This here is a round turn. I went all the way around. Every time you do a round turn, this is not a round turn. If you tie this knot, this is a round turn. Every time you do that, you've gained a mechanical advantage. And so if I go through here, that's a half hitch. And if I go through again, that's 2 half hitches. That's a round turn and 2 half hitches. And this is an incredibly useful knot. And it's so simple. But it's not the same as just going around and going through. You see, with this, there's no mechanical advantage. Look at this, watch. Watch this. Let's just say you did this. That's not even a round turn and a half hitch. But watch. Well, that wasn't a very good knot. I just pulled it right out. Watch this. That's a round turn and just 1 half hitch. It's not pulling out. I could get it to pull out if I went really slowly. I could get it to undo. If I did a round turn and 2 half hitches, 1, and then a second one, and I'm doing this one-handed because my other hand seems to be in use. Now I really can't undo that knot. And so, these are knots that I use them all the time, and they're so handy. I'm going to show you another very handy thing. So this is a 3/8 line. This is a 1/4 inch line. 2 different size lines. You could do this with a hawser. You could do this with an 1.5 inch thick hawser, and you make a loop, and here's your other line. You're going up through the middle, around, and through. And so it looks like there's your figure 8 again, but it's 2 different knots. It's 2 different lines. And when you pull that together, that's a sheet bend. And to make it even better, that's a sheet bend. And so you can join 2 unlike size lines that won't slip. And both have a camel, and a camel. But to make it even better, you go around once, and then you go around a second time. And that's a double sheet bend. And that's a beautiful, beautiful little knot for joining 2 lines together. And you can undo it because it's got a camel. It's got a couple camels. Now, as a sheet bend, clove hitch, round turn with 2 half hitches, a bowline, a figure 8 knot, and a square knot. A square knot, 2 lines. It's right over left, left over right. If you do it wrong, it's going to be a granny knot. Look at how beautiful that knot is. That's a square knot. And it won't slip. But if you tie it the wrong way, it's a granny knot and it will slip. So it's very simple, but you got to pay attention, especially if you're upside down. If you're hanging from a tree from your foot and you got to get a line to get your back up on the tree or something, a lot of times you're in the wrong plane, and you got to be able to do this stuff with your eyes closed in the dark behind your back. So it's right over left, left over right. If you do it the wrong way, so I'll do it the wrong way. There's my guitarist. Okay, we'll see you in a bit. Bye. That was my warning that band practice is going to start. So I go right over left. Now I'm going to go right over left. Yeah, and well, I'm going to do it again. Right over left, and then right over left, which is incorrect. And watch. That's really quite amazing. Let me tighten it. Right over left, right over left. I'm going to tighten it and watch. That's a, so don't get it wrong, because you're going to lose your gear. You're going to lose your boat. You're going to lose your dog. All these things that you thought you just tied up are gone because you didn't do the simple thing, which is right over left, left over right. Now it can't slip. I got that doggy. I've tied my boat up during 4 hurricanes, and I haven't lost the boat yet, knock on wood. This year I got insurance for the whole thing because they're calling for crazy hurricanes. And they are, by the way, the news is calling for increased hurricane season in the Atlantic. I figure that means they're going to hit DeSantis and all his guys in Florida. They're not going to come up our way, but you never know. You got to be prepared. You just have to be prepared for what's going on. So we'll all keep in touch during this upcoming season, because it's all about just being aware. You can't be caught unaware. You can't say, oh, I didn't know there was a hurricane coming. I'll give you a perfect for instance of being badly prepared. Okay, Superstorm Sandy's coming up. And everyone knows, they're hearing Superstorm Sandy. And I'm at the Marine Center, and they say, they're calling for a 8 to 10 foot above normal high tide. And I'm thinking, there's no way that it's coming 8 to 10, 12 feet over high tide. That would bring the water line up to halfway up the doors. And Kimmy's daughter came over and was helping me out that day. And I worked her pretty hard that day. And I thought, well, let's get home. That's enough. And so I leave, and Superstorm Sandy comes up. I left a car in the parking lot, and the water went over the dashboard. The car was underwater. The water line came halfway up all the doors, and so much equipment went underwater. And that was just stupid. It was very, very unprepared for a major storm. And, it just, you can't be, you can't mess with Mother Nature, because it wants to do damage to you. So there's some knots, there's some little blabbing, and it's basically to just say hello, and we'll keep in touch. And I am on call. If you need my email, you can get my email. I keep my phone with me all the time. Don't call past 9 o'clock at night. I'm fast asleep. I'm very early to bed and early to rise. I'm a Ben Franklin type of person. So anything anyone wants to add, subtract, multiply, or divide? No, everyone wants to eat. Have a great 3-day weekend. The season is upon us and lots of activities. So dig in and don't be shy. All right.
Kim?
Yes. Hi
Oh,
there.
Hi, it's me, Suzanne. It says Jim, but obviously it's not Jim. I had a question. So if we could come get some oysters to eat, but when do we set, if we have stuff from last year, when do we set our lines up at Tiana?
You're all registered and whatnot?
I'm registered and I did it last year.
Yeah, okay. So here's the deal. And people have been asking, when are you bringing the oysters back to Tiana? Well, I'm hoping that people come to the Marine Center
Mhm.
and process their oysters and bring them back. And we can make it very simple. All the lines are ready to run. We're there every Tuesday, but I'm not going to start shuttling oysters in the trailer till June because I've got lots of things going on. And, if I'm hoping that there's still about at least 80 people at the Marine Center with their oysters. For me to bring 80 people's oysters back is going to take weeks and weeks. And, I'm going to start shuttling some pretty soon. But if you want your oysters and you want to set them up, just come by the Marine Center any Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the morning. We pull them off the line. I made a nice map. I know where everybody's stuff is, as long as it was well labeled. Dean came, he's smiling because he came, it was short order. I mean, you come by, we've got all the pressure washers. You can clean everything up. If you have your old cages, you could bring them with you. You could set them up, get everything ready. So all you have to do is, we could put them in, if you bring a couple trash bags, it doesn't matter if you're driving your Lexus or your BMW or your Rolls Royce, you could throw those oyster cages right in there. You won't get anything wet. And click them to your line. And if you really can't do that, I will help people and I will bring people's stuff, but it's going to take me a while. So I think that most people want to get going, and I can make it very simple for you. And it also, as an enticement, it's good to see the Marine Center if you've never been there. It's a really interesting place. On a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, when you come out, everybody you see in the back there are Spat members. Everyone is your peer. And it's kind of amazing to see what goes on there. So, I understand that it's a field trip, but it's a worthwhile field trip. And we make it worth your while by helping you out, getting everything all set up for you.
I just have a stupid question. I have a stupid question. And that is, if I come by early on tomorrow, just maybe to see the place and everything, is the traffic going to be horrific? Like, is it the trade parade, like to go to Southampton?
It's the opposite direction. Nobody wants to go to Southold. So the trade parade is going your way, not our way.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, nobody there's no mad traffic going my way.
Okay.
I used to drive from the Springs every morning, and I would drive by traffic from the college to exit 63 coming into Southampton stopped no matter what time of morning it was. And I would fly by and look at it. So it's going the opposite direction.
Okay, thank you.
So there's that, and also what was the other thing? It's a nice ride out. Yeah, and it's not that far.
Thank you.
Good. Enjoy the weekend, everyone. What are you eating, Chris? What are you eating? Dinner? What is it? All right. I think
Tortelloni with homemade pesto.
awesome. Yeah, we're big pesto people. I might do in either next month or the month after, I'm going to set up my stuff in the kitchen and I'm going to do a cooking thing. Because I have to say, I made an oyster stew the other night. Every oyster stew I've made we rave about. It's just remarkable, and it's so simple, and it's something to be shared. You know, the other one is the thing with the faux Rockefeller on the grill and these things. The simplest recipes that are just remarkable. And every time I eat an oyster stew, I think if I was at a restaurant, this bowl would cost like $30. And it took 5 minutes to make, and it cost like 28 cents. And that was for the butter, because we don't have a cow. So I think I'm going to start doing some culinary stuff. It's always fun to do. And on that note, people maybe we'll do a communal effort where we start doing a series where Spat members set up and do things. I mean, we made a cookbook years and years ago. It's 20 years ago, but it would be kind of interesting to do a video series on just doing an informal cooking thing. And so let's think about that. Good. Off we go.
Sounds great. Thank you, Kim.
Good. We'll take
Bye,
care of you.
everybody.
Come
Thank you,
by, Chris.
Kim.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh, I'm gonna
you.
stop
Thank you,
recording.
Chris.
Good. And Chris, stop by anytime. We'll set you.
Will do. Wednesday.
Okay. Yep. Bye.